I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew here today that we are very serious about stopping bullying in the workplace. And one of the reasons that we were so proud to host this is because we see no place for bullying or harassment in our workplace.
This subject is huge. It's such a broad subject, and so we want you to kind of think about it in this one particular way, and it is about confidence. And so when our speakers come up, and Stephen from ACAS talks about the definition of what bullying and harassment is, he's doing that in a sense to take all of the subjectivity out of what this means, because again, my definition of dignity and respect might be completely different than somebody else's. And so it's really important for businesses to actually take the time to define what diversity and equality and inclusion and respect and all of these visions, aims, and values that you live under. You have the opportunity to define what that means for people so that as they navigate their careers and access the services and access the products that you offer as business, they understand what you mean by that. These issues are so at the forefront of what we do. When we started looking at bullying and harassment in the Workplace Equality Index, we looked at it in a very peripheral way, just whether or not you mentioned sexual orientation as one of the streams of characteristics that could be bullied or harassed. But over the years of looking at the best practice that was coming out of businesses like yourselves, we started to understand that there was a process beyond just the written word. Because honestly, all of the best written papers and policies in the world are great, but my lived experience comes from the relationship I have with my manager, with my colleagues, with those people who do or don't invite me out to lunch. That determines what my relationship is when I work in your business. So it's more than just the written word. It's how people understand these things and how you take a strong stance as a business on what these things mean for you. It's not just about bad behavior, because we know what bad behavior is. It's about confidence. It's about giving people the confidence to talk about their differences in a way that's more celebratory rather than don't be mean to people, because we know that.
I'm sure we've all heard terms like we have a zero tolerance of bullying and harassment. We want to eliminate bullying and harassment. Fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's going to happen. Whatever policies you have, whatever practices you have, whatever training you put in place, it's going to happen. So, given that, how do you deal with it in a way that is swift, seeks justice, and tries as much as possible to restore people to the position they were in before that happens? To give some perspective around this, let's have a look at what we think in terms of, what ACAS thinks in terms of harassment and bullying. It's the standard definition. The bits I'd like to point out to you on there is this thing about conduct related to a protected characteristic. That's very much at the heart of what harassment is about. As you know, the Equality Act developed this concept of 9 protected characteristics. And so harassment is related to that unwanted conduct that has either the purpose or effect of creating that sort of environment.
To take you through some of the drivers for our anti-bullying action. Over the years, as was indicated by Steve, we've had policies in place for many years. We all have. In terms of our looking at action in relation to anti-bullying, we have picked up on a few key drivers. A couple of years ago, we had a service user complaint come forward. A young woman reported an incident of homophobic bullying in one of our services, and the staff in that service started to put things into place to deal with a complaint. The young woman withdrew her complaint, as she was entitled to do. The service staff, however, felt that there was something there, and they wanted to build upon that particular complaint to identify learning for themselves in their service, but also recognising that we would want to take learning into the rest of our organisation.
So our policies, we had our original standalone policy created in 2004, and it drew on current best practice. It was devised in consultation with unions, diversity experts, and staff from diverse backgrounds. It's currently being revised, and we're looking to create a new dignity at work policy with greater emphasis on informal resolution and a more streamlined process.
Yeah, a point I would add to that, it requires strong leadership to have the right policies, well thought out policies, as well as that communications piece. And strong leadership means that people need to show a commitment towards that. And I think what Caroline was describing at UCL shows that leadership there takes it very seriously. And as a result, you're creating more of a community atmosphere. No one goes to work, no one goes to school to have a bad time. They go to grow, to contribute, to be part of that community. And leaders, whether it's a corporation or a school, a university, they all have to know that part of their job is to create and foster that community where people are treated fairly.
I found it really informative, actually. It's always good to see what other organisations are doing in the bullying and harassment field. So coming along here, getting some best practice and also networking with other individuals is always very, very useful.
Yes, there is a need sometimes for the policies and the formal approaches, but there is a real importance of leadership, setting culture and informal approaches so that we work as leaders to make the environment as safe as possible for people to feel that they can come forward if there are issues of harassment or bullying.
But then the individual things that managers can do can actually be around looking at language. It can be around looking at the situations that have to happen within teams, and actually having a strong enough stance to just reinforce what the business is trying to say when they're talking about their visions, their aims, and their values, and all of these policies that everybody knows about. So it very much is in managing. There are no real telltale signs for managers to look out for when, looking at their teams to see whether or not bullying or those things are happening. I think the only thing that we can do really is to make the culture as inclusive as we can.